Okay, I just made a mistake, so I had to start all over. All right, I'm doing the 2/7 Saturday video. We're getting close. We're getting very close, as a matter of fact, to being done, which is really cool. There was a mention, I think it was on the last video, I'm not quite sure, on stethoscopes, because I was trying to think of all the things that make you look professional. And a stethoscope around your neck definitely pulls you out of the crowd as being an RN. LPNs worm rarely because they don't really use them. They're not really doing that as much as they could. Of course, CNAs don't at all, unless they're doing a manual blood pressure, and usually even on the automatic cuff, there's one hanging there to use. And it's usually one of those cheapy $15 ones. And I can tell you, the comparison of a $50 one and a $15 one is huge. So you're going to be able to hear a lot better if you go ahead and invest in a $50 or more stethoscope. It'll just make a big difference. And maybe you can't afford it right now, but in another 6 months you will. And pick you out a good one, kind of keep your eye on other people, what they like, and maybe try them on or something, see what you think. Because a stethoscope is one of your very extreme important tools. And I've talked about that. You walk in to check in on a patient, maybe they have their light on and you're walking by, so you go in and check, and they're short of breath. Well, why are they short of breath? You need to pop that stethoscope off and listen to their chest, period. Don't, just because maybe you work around somebody else who's lazy and doesn't do a good job and doesn't do that, means absolutely nothing. Because when you're sitting there in court and that judge is looking at you and maybe asks you a question, you want to be able to say, no, sir, I had my stethoscope on, and within seconds I was listening to his chest. You don't want to say, well, Margaret doesn't wear them, so I haven't worn mine in a while, but it's in my locker. So in case I ever need it, I can, go off to my locker and open it up and, all this. It's very unprofessional. You want to stand out in the crowd as being an RN. You will be just moving up in your level of expectations of what people expect from you. When a doctor comes up to you down the hall and asks you a question about so-and-so's lung sounds, it's maybe 10 o'clock and he wants to know, wait a minute, I just made rounds and I listened to his lungs and I hear a lot of crackles. You want to be able to say, well, I heard some or whatever in my first morning rounds when I was doing my bedside notes. Let me check. Well, let's go back there and I can tell you whether or not it's worse than it was earlier. Or, there's all sorts of things. This is a serious thing. You have people's lives in your hands. So you can't go by, well, when Margaret mentored me, she never wore one. So ever since then, I don't. So Margaret's a crappy RN. You want to be one too. Is that it? No, it isn't it. You want to be the best you could be. All right. Okay. So, and there is kind of tricks you could do to kind of help. I know after a while, even my lab coat, which I need to wear as an instructor, that lab coat, the weight will pull on my neck sometimes. So I'll be adjusting it, trying to make sure it isn't pulling so much on my neck. And that's the same thing with your stethoscope. When you wear your stethoscope, sometimes it doesn't weigh very much, but it'll sort of annoy you around your neck. So adjust it back so that it's not pulling on your neck. Or I used to take mine a lot and just cross it over, hook the bell on the earpiece, and that would kind of take care of it. You also have an alternative of putting it in your pocket, but I can tell you, that only lasts so long because that is extremely annoying, because as you walk, you almost have to hold your arm out to not hit it and bump it and all this kind of stuff. And I used to have a lot of cop friends, and they used to say that you could always tell an undercover cop by the way they walk, because they would walk like this. They would walk with, they would walk with their arms kind of out a little bit like this as they walked. And no, they weren't somebody on Thorazine. They were just used to having all that gear on their right. So their arms were trained to kind of be out a little bit. And any crook that had any wisdom would be able to spot that and know it's an undercover cop. But they try to, relearn how to walk like a normal, as soon as they get into something like that. But that's how you tell. They'll do that. Even down in a bar, you're talking, because I used to hit a bar after work way back in my young days, and that's where the cops hung out, and that's where some of the nursing staff hung out. And we talk about those sort of things, and it's very interesting. So if you wear your stethoscope in your pocket, you will eventually start walking like an undercover cop, which is kind of funny. But it'll start to annoy you, and then you'll eventually get it back on your neck, cross it over, or do whatever. It's very important as an RN to wear it. LPNs rarely wear their stethoscope. I used to always do it because I wanted to be a good LPN, and back in those days, we did do a lot of things that the LPNs now don't do. Of course, we're down in southern Florida. There's a lot of places that use LPNs as they've always used them. There for a while, they were trying to get them out of the hospitals and things like that, which was ridiculous. And what that caused is for schools and everything to kind of bring down their clinical skills and things like that, which is unbelievably stupid. Because if you move to, let's say Oklahoma, and you go to a hospital, you're going to expect to know all the skills that all the other LPNs know. So it's good to practice these things and, just do a good job at it. But that stethoscope, you walking down the hall with a stethoscope will tell any doctor or resident that you're an RN. So I want you to feel confident in yourself, and I want you to feel like you are an RN so that you will progress and you will become a better RN. You don't want to be the worst RN on the unit. You want to be the best one. And that takes time of practice, doing simple things like wearing a stethoscope. Always have 2 pins in your pocket. Be careful that they don't leak in your pocket, but if they do, hairspray sprayed right on it and will wipe out that ink because it has acetone or something in it that dissolves the ink. But you always want to have 2 pins. Don't bring your love pins, the one that I had this for so-and-so, because someone's going to borrow it and they won't give it back. And that's, again, the doctors and the residents. They will spot you as an RN and she has all the tools. We know that, and come borrow something. Maybe you could play with it and, write I borrowed this pen. It depends on your attitude. When you're around, like ICU, if you end up working ICU or ER or something like that, people get really humorous. I got a lot of my humor from, I was already a humorous person, but in that kind of a situation, that high pressure cooker, sometimes you will find yourself trying to find ways to calm yourself down, to make jokes, have fun, because they all want the same thing. And sometimes they can get a little, too risque about their joking and clowning around. Just ignore it if you don't want to join in. But it's a fun environment. You will run into people that are real stiff and, whatever. And those people, I never trusted them because they were so stiff that you didn't really know, are you stiff because you have no confidence and you really don't know what you're doing? Or are you stiff and will make yucky calls on problems, If you are relaxed and confident enough to kind of clown around every once in a while, that says a lot about you. Because if you're clowning around and you don't know what you're doing, that's not going to last. So if you're clowning around and do know what you're doing, it kind of shows that, it kind of says that. But, and I clown around a lot, and I get it from working in that for all these years in that environment. Well, and my folks are kind of, they laugh when they answer the phone. So, or they did anyway. Anyway, let me go on. So, if you borrow somebody's stethoscope, make sure, because of course you've got, a handful of alcohol wipes in your pocket anyway, but take one out and wipe the earpiece. And nobody sees that as like offensive or anything like that. It's just because people's earwax will build up in that little stethoscope earpiece. Or maybe they've got the beginnings of an ear infection and you put that in and now you've got an ear infection. So always wipe it off, and then wipe it off again when you give it back to them. A lot of, when you're in ICU, a lot of the beds will have stethoscopes hanging on an IV pole or whatever. So for those people that walk in and don't have their stethoscope, it's always those $15 stethoscopes that you can't hear crap, and they're dirty, so make sure to wipe those off. I mean, ugh. All right, okay. Little advice there. For years, it was very commonplace for people to hang their stethoscope on the rearview mirror, and that was very convenient. You get in your car, take off your stethoscope, and you're ready to separate the dehiss from wort. But if you hang it up there enough times, the sun will cook it into that U shape of hanging, and it'll destroy the rubber part, rubber part on your stethoscope. All right. All right. So again, I just was talking about here on the, I do have an agenda this time, by the way, so I wouldn't forget these things. Another little thing, nurse practitioners, doctors, and RNs are the ones that have stethoscopes around their neck. It's almost like you could be without your badge and they know you are an RN. Okay, just saying. I want you guys to start out really good and being treated with respect, and that's the way to do it. All right, so I was going through course 8's, I was going through, I can't remember which course it was. The course must have been 7, that we did the capstone post assessment. And I have an assignment in there for you to say, yes, I was at the 3-day, review, because I want to make sure you guys get hours on that in case for some reason at the tail end they say, you're 5 hours short. We could pull right from that. So it's kind of cool. But I forgot to put in to submit your results from the test, because it was like, I don't know, 100 questions. I can't quite remember, but only one person actually thought of doing that because I forgot about it, and everybody else who had already submitted forgot about it. It was Brianna with 2 N's. She had put in her report, and I'm like going, damn, we don't want to lose all those friggin' points on your test category there. So I made another assignment, and it is titled, ATI Capstone Proctored Post-Assessment Report. And it's in week 3 so that you could see it. There's no question because it's now standing out. So let's say you get 76% on your post-assessment. So I've given it a 100-point value. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty good amount. So just pull off your report, submit it up there. I'll read it because I know some reports are strictly, they do as a percentage. So if you get 76%, well, 76 out of 100 is 76. So with that, you'll get 76 points. So you don't want to lose these points, and I apologize for not remembering. I was so focused on those 3 days and the time that you were getting for that I forgot about the actual test. So anyway, so please go back to week 3 and submit that ATI Capstone Proctored Post-Assessment Report. And that's all you have to do. It's not like you have to do something other than just submit it. I see a lot of people, when I closed up all the 5, 6, and 7, did all the grades and stuff, there was a lot of people that still had a lot of missing assignments. I had one person I asked specifically, are you sure you got all of them done in course 7? Oh, yes, I got them all done, and was worried about something else. And sure enough, I went in there and there were 10 assignments not done. But there has to be a deadline, there has to be an end, and it ended yesterday afternoon. So, because I had first said it was going to be in on Saturday, well, I got busy, so I always push things if I get too busy to do something. So they were all concluded yesterday, which is Thursday afternoon. So they're all in there. Don't go back and try to do one and say, hey, can you add this? It's too late. I can't keep going back and forth. We're busy. You're busy. We're closing up shop here pretty soon on your class. All right. So I'm going to work on now, since I've got all this was on hold waiting for me to finish up all of the assignments and total them and close them. So now I can do this. This is my chore for today, is to get all these books done so that I could give them to you on Monday. And on Monday, expect to sit there at your chair and make copies, because in order for me to close it, I had to put down that you had 50 points already, that was already submitted. I couldn't leave it blank. So can't make me a liar. So it has to be copied this Monday, because that's the only time I have you in front of me, so that you can get it done. If I go and I'm starting on the 9th course, say, and I look back and it wasn't submitted, then I will remove that. I will go to the chore of removing it and changing it on your transcript. So do it. Don't blow it off. You're an RN, for goodness sakes. All right. So let me see. So we still have 8 left for me to close that up, and of course 9. And of course 8, we're still in it, so there's no way I can close it. I'm trying to keep up with grading so that when we do close, then the grades it'll be a quick and easy thing for me to do, and then I can transfer them over to your transcripts. Your transcripts right now are all complete up to 8. So it stops at 8. So I can't remember the last day of everything being due on week 6, but please keep in mind that should be the close day. So get on these things. I can't keep. There's several people, well, not several, but a lot of people that I have mentioned to them, like in the other courses, like course 7, course 6, several times stopped everything, delayed what I was in the middle of doing to write them yet another message, how to finish an assignment, to do it. There's a couple of assignments that people were just stubborn about. Well, I ain't going to do it your way. I want to do it my way. So there's 0. Duh, you're in a class. I'm the teacher, not you. But most generally, everybody is doing it the way they're supposed to do it. If you ever have a question on how to do something, you just don't say, hey, I will do it my way. You ask me, and I'll tell you how to do it. Because usually, if it's slightly hard to understand, I've been asked several times anyway, and usually about 8 to 9 out of your 12 have done it correctly. They've been able to figure out how to do it. So if you didn't finish them, they were zeroed out. So there you go. I didn't lose any points. You did. Okay. All this drama. All right. So, and remember, this whole program closes March the 1st. So have course 9 done before March the 1st. Now, there's a lot of people that have already started, which I am so glad. And me and Cindy and both are just fine with that. I think even Risa, she talked to Risa about it. We're all fine about it. Then you can take less of your work days off. So it's kind of good. I mean, I think there's at least 3 people that have already started and have had their first days. So don't feel bad about, spreading your schedule out so that you don't have to cancel some of your work days. I thought that was kind of I forgot who started that, but it kind of made sense. So anyway, let me see. Do not be late on assignments. Now's the time. We're too close for us to just play and be weeks behind. And here about was it the 7th month? We knew I was giving you a lot of work, and so I talked to Cindy about it, and she said, "Well, just stop doing the late charge." And I said, "That's fine because it takes too much of my time. There's so many people that cannot seem to get things in on time, which you got to get rid of that. You got to get rid of it. When you start working, you'll lose your job that way." So anyway, so that's why I kind of been able to kind of flow through, because I wasn't charging those late fees. So I was just going straight through it. But there is a limit to how long we can do that. All right, let me see. Well, now let's move on. Right now, we're at an average pulse for the class at 87%. We were 89. But anyway, we dropped a little bit, but that's okay. But I don't believe anybody in iTech history has had an average pulse of 90. So I'm just saying, you guys are the first graduating class of registered nurses here. And you're going to go down into history if you guys hit 90, because that will be used as and then they'll say, "Oh, well, they were just super smart." It's like, no, they worked hard. It's all about that, working hard. All right. Let me see. Remember the health, and you want to do a good job because of the health and lives of the people that are in your hands. You want to be an excellent RN. Let me see. So please study for that test you've got on Monday. There is no repeat. They're only going to do it on Monday morning, the final on leadership, and that's it. So do your best. All right. And just feel free to text me if I forgot something, or I will text you if I forgot something, because that's what I usually do. But have a good weekend. Oh, wait, let me just show you this. I wanted to remind you how high you guys are held. I talk about how the doctors will steal things sometimes, especially residents and interns. Always be aware of things that are precious to you, like your $50 or $150 stethoscope that you've got around your neck. Don't ever leave them laying around. And I want to remind you why. Let me just bring up the Gallup poll. Gallup poll was for 2024, and for the past 23 years, they have surveyed people and have found, now here in 24, the last one, they found 76 of Americans rate nurses as having high honesty and ethical standards. Notice they didn't say that about the doctors or anybody else. They're saying that about you guys. So you are coming in following a distinction of honesty, of goodness, of ethical standards, of all this. And let me just bring this a little bit closer if I can without screwing up the picture. And here we are again. There is 24. And nurses are number one, 79%. Right below us are medical doctors. So here you think people, trust their doctor, blah, blah. They trust nurses over medical doctors. And that, I want to remind you, is because of the people that have came before you. You were on the shoulders of those people, and they've they've worked hard to be trustworthy, honest, to have ethical standards, because people have to turn their lives over to us, or the lives of their children or whatever. We have got to be very high on our standards. So if you're not so much that right now, really work on it. And you're going to find people that aren't like that, but you'll find that they don't last very long.